We are right at project launch. You can see where we are. You can see that sprint 1 is due soon. And I see in the team, up in Teams, there were some questions about sprint 1 and how to do it, what to do. So we can take a look at some of those. What is a sprint? Why are we using this term sprint for project management? And that question is an important question. Technology projects use something called Agile project management. And Agile project management is organized into sprints. So this terminology is pretty standard across the industry. And that's what I want you to get out of this. I want you to learn the terminology. Remember, this is a beginning class. But right now is a good time to learn it. And why do I want you to learn it? Not just so you get something done using the terms at the moment. I want you to know how to create the management structure for a successful technology project. You might as well start learning the terms now. This technique has been more effective than other techniques. So earlier, when I was talking before class, and this came up, I brought up a comparison. I said, listen, some of you probably work in construction. Built a house or like done construction work before. 4 of us. 5. I have. So like if we're going to build a house or something like that, typically it has to, especially building a whole building, it has to get permitted. You have to plan it in advance. You got to have, it has to be all set up. You got to order the materials. Like there's a timeline you have to follow. You got to know who's coming. You got to get your contractors in order. There might be some hiccups along the way, but you pretty much have to plan out the whole project before you begin. That is called the waterfall technique. That's when you try to plan the whole project before you begin. And pretty much you follow that plan. It's plannable because building a house or a building is pretty well known. Materials are well known. The specialties that are needed are well known. Right? We've been building buildings for a long time. The Code of Hammurabi in the 600 BC or something like that had rules for building houses. One of the first legal codes ever written was about building buildings. So we've known that kind of project management for a long time. In a technology project, we're often building something new to the world. Building some kind of technology solution that may not have ever existed. And so I would compare that to like trying to build a house on the moon. Try to build a house on the moon, you got a lot of more unknowns. And so what happens when you have more unknowns is you replan during the project. You have a big outcome goal. You have sort of a frame at the outset, but you intentionally organize smaller sprints of work punctuated with replanning meetings called scrums. And in industry, that typically happens in 2-week chunks, because the closer you are to the work, the closer you can estimate what you really need to be doing in the next 2 weeks. And so that's what we're doing. We've got a few sprints, and then you're not really doing the replanning. I've provided you with checklists of things to do. So we're kind of structured in that sense, right? So you're seeing that. You're seeing I'm telling you the things I want you to do at least during sprint 1, at least. Now, could you go on and do more? Absolutely. You could go on and do more. Whatever idea you have is auto-approved for the project. Do I care what you're working on? A little bit. I'm excited by the projects. I know we've got people in here doing different things. We've got some games, we've got some analytics, we've got some stuff working with family businesses. All of that is cool. In fact, I am so excited about that I want you to step over to Teams and look over here. So remember, I asked you to put your stuff up in 2 different places. So you turn it in D2L, but then I also want you to go pull it and put it up over here in the projects and presentations channel in this projects spreadsheet. Look at that. So most people have done that now, but look at this. Look at this. So if you don't have a line here, you need to go into this sheet and put it up. You can do it right now. Somebody's in there with me right now. Who's that, Dimitri? Yep. So this works like a Google Doc. So I'm also trying to teach you to use collaboration technology in this class. So if you haven't ever used this feature of Teams, now's the time. Your ability is there to actually collaboratively edit simultaneously a Excel spreadsheet in Teams. If you've never seen or thought about that before, there it is. I want you to know it's there. You don't need to create a Google Doc. So remember we were talking about code management? I actually have to deal with this with some grad students today. They don't realize this is here, even though they've been through my class, oddly. They've forgotten. And we're working on a mental health project with an actual client. It's not cool what they're doing. They just put up some of our content in their private, personal Google Drive. That actually violates our memorandum of understanding with the client because it's outside of the organizational security policy. It's a liability exposure. That matters. Definitely matters. So you got to kind of know these things, right? You got to know why using the organizational tool matters and then be able to use it. All right, use it. There it is. But what I'm also trying to do, so look, we got me plus 6 people in the sheet right now. You see that little number going up? As people get into the sheet and start typing, you see the little number? Telling me who's in there. And of course, it's keeping track of all the changes and such. So I can come over here and click on it. I can say, well, oh man, look, some people have been in there editing. I can say, oh, look, there's Jackson. So I can click on Jackson. I can see exactly where Jackson is. A lot of people can be in there working at once. But I want you to see all the kinds of things people are working on. Because taking inspiration from each other is one way to deal with the sense of being alone and what have you. So like we were talking earlier and Dimitri's interested in doing rock, paper, scissors. I'm like, yeah, someone else is too. Can't remember who. And then you, I think, went in here and looked at it and found it, right? So now you've got the email address of that person. You guys could email each other and share content or work together or maybe just follow each other. You know, one person may have one kind of solution for a problem that he runs into. He may have one for the one they run into. Get more done.
Can the projects be similar with, like, for example, I'm working
identical.
I'm working on an inventory system, like where you can have like variances, like actual versus ideal inventory. Yeah. So if someone else is doing this, I can get ideas. And
I have no problem with that. I am telling you in the beginning of this project. So this is Santosh's question. So check this out. Not only could they be similar, I'm encouraging you to start with existing code. Because when you start this project up, first of all, your project idea, I asked you to try to put a URL to an existing tutorial or code base, right? Because I want you intentionally, you need to start with what exists. Almost, no, I won't. I hesitate to say it, but maybe I should say it. I'll say almost, but I really want to say nobody. Almost nobody ever codes from scratch. Ever. Anywhere. And there's a skill I want you to acquire during Sprint 1 that is super important, and many of you have skipped it or are skipping it, and you still have time to get it, because we're still in Sprint 1. And that is the skill of evaluating a repository. Because there are bad ones, and there are good ones. All right, who's got an idea they want me to help explore? Because I need an example. All right, what do you got?
Moneyball.
Moneyball. Okay. So let me just go over and get out a browser window. And I'm going to hop over to GitHub. And here's GitHub. And this is our organization, right? KSUIS. So first of all, Moneyball. I could just search that term. I could come down here and I could type Moneyball. Not seeing anything so far. Let me just hit a space in there. Influencer bag. Program that helps figure out approximately how much money an influencer has made off a YouTube post. That's not the right thing. All right, so we're not finding it in our organization. Now I'm going to come up here to the big search, and I'm going to type Moneyball, and I'm going to search all of GitHub. And now I find about 500 repositories, 69,000 pieces of code relevant to this. And notice 153 of them are Jupyter notebooks, so languages, right? See this languages selection? It's factored by languages. This is important because we've only been learning Python. So don't get yourself something that's written in Java. You're gonna be hurting. But you could get something in a Jupyter notebook because that's Python too. So actually the majority of the stuff for Moneyball, 200 of the items are in Python, either in Jupyter notebooks or Python direct files. And we know the difference, right? Because we've been doing both. So maybe you're comfortable with Jupyter notebooks. We got a lot of options here, 153 items. So I'm going to click on Jupyter notebook. And now I see a ton of stuff. So what I'm walking you through is what you need to be doing in Sprint 1. I want to evaluate the quality of the different code options here. I got 153 of them. Maybe I'll go through all of them. If you are a company, if you're going to start a company, like you really want to do Moneyball well, how many of these options should you check out? Every single one of them. Because you might be able to assemble from, maybe the 151st one is going to have one little piece that's well written of a certain problem. And then you'll have other pieces from other problems in different ones, and you kind of put it all together. And saves you $1 million of coder time. $1 million of coder time is not that much coder time, honestly. Would you rather save the $1 million or burn it up? That's the management question. So don't skip Sprint 1. Sprint 1, you're trying to evaluate repositories. So here, I'm just going to click one. Now, there's other things I want you to pay attention to. There are reasons why the interface here gives us all this different kind of data. And notice what they highlight right up front. They are highlighting the things that the coding community and people like you pay attention to, people like I pay attention to. This date matters to me. Why? Yeah, why do I care the last update date?
Could be outdated.
Yeah, it could be outdated. So if I start seeing like 2019, 2020, but on the other hand, a lot of people like this repositories. Maybe it was really good, but it's a little bit out of date, maybe. And if I start popping down here, I see here, this one has a free license. This license means I can just use it. That's important. Licensing matters. Because if I'm going to build a product ultimately, and I take somebody's code, but it didn't have an open source license that allows commercial use, I better go talk to that guy and get an agreement before we go public with it. I've got a liability exposure. Essentially end up owning my business.
Or a big chunk of it.
I don't want that to happen. So it doesn't matter for your project per se at the moment in terms of true revenue. You're not going to generate revenue yet, probably. But I want you to be aware of that, right? Because this is a skill, evaluating repositories. And so I can come back down here. Here's another one, 2020. This one's been updated quite recently. Look at that. Here's a Moneyball one. This one's been updated this year. So let's go with this one. This one here, well, actually several of these. This one's updated this year. So quite a few. So I'm just going to click this one. And I'm going to look in here. I see the most recent updates 4 months ago. Now, you and I know that there are ways we can actually dig into the code. I can click straight on it right now. So I could come in here and just click on some of it. This guy has a report. There's a presentation in here. Must have been done for a class like ours somewhere else in the world. Why don't we just take a look and see? Here's the PDF of the presentation. Look at that. Data analytics project. Sports betting. I got a whole PDF of a report. They've got several modeling methods. This is a little bit more advanced statistics. You guys have to take a statistics class, right?
Yes.
But I'm not sure you get into all of that. That all makes sense to you?
Yes, kind of.
With things. Like if you run into Bayesian analysis? Probably not yet.
Regression, but
neural
yeah,
networks.
other than that.
Regression you should have seen. Regression you got. Neural net you've probably heard of but not used.
Going to be in the data mining course.
Exactly. Some of it will be in the data mining course. You got to get fairly sophisticated with statistics to do all of these. But you know, you learn, right? And this is kind of a nice project because it has an explanation report with it. It's kind of cool. There's a lot of pieces going on there, but then it looks like exploratory data analysis. So here I can actually pull their Jupyter notebook. I'm feeling good about this one. Now this is looking good. Look at that. Look at that. What do you see right there? Pandas. They're using pandas to make this work. We were talking about pandas earlier and the new demo project I put up in D2O from Professor Sims. Same infrastructure they're using at Home Depot. So this is all, I know all of these. They're very common. This is all very common technologies for data analytics that they're using. It makes me feel comfortable. It's good. And I see a little bit of documentation. I like to see that. I like seeing some comments kind of telling me what the big idea of each chunk of code is. That's good coding. Kind of going down here, 5 sample teams from Western Conference. Describe, there's an outcome. Correlation heat map. Look at that heat map. Boy, that's intense. Look at that. Giving you a sense of home overall. You can kind of see, giving me quick analytics on the field, what's going on. But you're seeing the code and the outcomes in a Jupyter notebook. So I'm just evaluating the code, right? I start with any topic. How many repositories are on GitHub? I haven't even updated.
A lot.
Million. Million. Give me something esoteric. Moneyball is too common. That's like something a lot of people are interested in. Tell me something weird and unusual. Let's search for it.
Sports betting model.
Oh God, no, man, that's not unusual. There's like a million of those. Give me something far out.
I want to take an Excel sheet and then break up in the Excel sheet or extract the data from the Excel sheet where it shows like estimators and then how much money they're like the gross dollar amount of projects they did and the gross dollar amount of projects that they
From an Excel sheet?
closed. Yeah, from an Excel sheet.
So go watch Professor Sims' tutorial because he shows you how to work with Excel sheets. Start there. That's a very common example. That's super common. I had a student in this class a few years back who was he was an older guy. He was like 60. He's a senior project manager at Lockheed, just down the road. Came here to take this class. And he did exactly that as his project in this class. He's a senior project manager overseeing a whole portfolio of projects, and he was pulling analytics from a bunch of them into Python, running a bunch of stuff on it, and then spewing it back to Excel with summary analysis. And it's probably, I don't know that he shared all the code because some of it was classified, but some of it is in our repository for sure. But that's a great example, but it's not uncommon. I'm looking for something strange. Yes.
What about like a tornado predictor?
Tornado prediction, weather prediction. So Python definitely gets used in that space. Tornado prediction. Huh. Maybe. Oh, no, it's only searching in that one spot. Search all of GitHub. 20 repositories, 5 of them are in Jupyter Notebooks, another 5 are in Python. Tornado prediction.
How are they doing in Jupyter? Is that just like more visual looking than Python?
There's several reasons data analytics get done in Jupyter. So Jupyter is a web server native format. And it has been optimized to separate the explanations from the code, right? Because I can have a markdown cell and I can have a code cell. And the value of that is I can, first of all, have a richer explanation here so that other people can work on the project, they can read it and see it right there. The documentation and the code are together in a rich format in one file, but during runtime, when I actually run the code, the processing engine has explicitly designated the difference between the two, and so it totally ignores the documentation because the processing engine doesn't need the documentation. Whereas in classic Python files, you have to put comments into the file, and so that takes up read time. And if, like with weather prediction, the data you're processing are gigantic, and so that little extra burden from the comments and such in the code causes people to not write them. Makes it less reusable and harder to follow. So for data analytics, it's become really common. The other thing is a lot of the data analytics outputs are in web pages. So because Jupyter is web native, the different formatted charts and graphs and such are fairly easy to pipe into web pages and do analytics with and make them available to your community to view and see and play with. So there's a few things like that. What you can't do with a Jupyter notebook is spin up a whole web server. It can only exist within an existing server. You can't spin up a web server because the permissions are not allowed. You can't spin up a full GUI application like Tkinter or a full database application. You can't do those things.
For data, it's good.
For data analytics, it's super popular. Yeah. But there we go. We got tornado predictors, and then we could go through them and find, what are the best ones. Laura, you're here. My God. So yeah, lots of possibilities. This one's written as an API. This is cool. This one, although I will say this is a little different. This is actually a package in Python called Tornado. That's not actually a tornado predictor. This is an API module in Python. But several of these are actually predictions. And notice this one is for the Amazon Disaster Response Hackathon. So Amazon natively will host Jupyter notebooks with their infrastructure. That's, Jupyter is comfortable. Python is too, but Jupyter is comfortable on most of these things. So when you start going through and you create things, a couple of people were asking in Teams over here if I hit the general discussion. And if you start looking around, D'Artagnan gave a good one here to Fiona, talking about how do you go about, editing and updating your README file or your project roadmap. So when you go in and create a repository over here, now I've got a number of them, so let me go and pull one up. And so Python teaching code. Been using this one. So I can go over to this repository, and I can see that I've got a README over here. And I can actually edit this README right here in GitHub. So I can click the little pencil icon over here to edit the file. And I'm editing something that's written in Markdown. Markdown is the same thing that's in Jupyter Notebook Markdown cells. So it's like a quick way of formatting text lightly. And it's in GitHub. It's also in Jupyter Notebooks. And I can see how it was done. And then if I wanted to put some more content in here, I could. So grade tracker, etc. And eventually, for example, I'm going to be putting in a 7 right here. Data analytics with Jupyter and pandas. And I can see that I'm going to need to put this little caret here to get my gray line. And then, I don't know if you can see that. And then I'm going to see coming soon. And I just hit save. I just hit Command S. And notice it took me to a commit dialog because this is a file being managed by Git. I have to commit it. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say added placeholder for data analytics demo project content. Oh, too many. We'll be adding this. We'll be adding this content by summer 2022. All right, and I have to commit the changes to the master branch. There it is. What have I done? So if I come back over and I look at what you're doing in Sprint 1, oops, a little too small. Go to there, zoom back up in the syllabus. Several places where you can find this list, but it is here. So here's in the syllabus. And you'll notice in Sprint 1, it says a few things. Among other things, I should have a repository where I'm an owner. Well, I definitely do. That Python teaching code, that's fine. I've forked it into my account. And then in your case, it also needs to be, well, it doesn't say it has to be in KSUIS yet, but you will need it there. So you need to push it over there because it has to be in our GitHub organization. So you're going to have to make sure you get it over there. So if I needed to come over here and check out my thing, you see how it says up here, Dominic T, Python teaching code? That's in my account personally. Remember how I was saying earlier how my graduate students are using a Google Doc and so they've got the content on their private account, which is a violation of our MOU? I want you to really know whether you put the code in the right place. So you're about to get graded on whether you put it under your personal account or in KSUIS. So how do I get this into KSUIS? Anyone got an idea? I'm not going to actually go through the whole process because I don't want it to be there in the long run, but for now, what would I do if I wanted to put it over there? Any ideas? How do you get it into your own account?
When you go to repositories, click new, and then create one.
But I want the content over there too. I don't want a blank. I could do that though. If I wanted a blank repository in KSUIS, I could go over there and create a blank, clone the blank to my machine, drag all the physical content from this one over there, and then commit it. I could do that, but it would lose the connection and the history.
Fork it.
Ah, I can fork it. Fork it. Let's see. What if I come over here and I hit fork? I hit fork. And now look at this. It lets me choose where to fork it to. I can fork this thing over here. Fork already exists. It's already over there. So there it is. I could fork it. And it would get put over there. So that's one answer to how I can get my thing into the GitHub organization. Now, what if I haven't accepted my invite to be a member of the organization yet? Could I do it? No, because I don't have rights to fork into that organization unless I accept the invite. So if you haven't accepted your invite yet, so let me just go over here to KSUIS and If you guys were watching the video from last week, you'll see that I went through the process of making sure everyone's invited. Actually, I'll hit Teams here. And I think I want to pull down and pull up. You don't have to create your own team necessarily. Here's our team for this semester. 47 people have accepted the invites so far. 99 have not, but some of those are actually mistaken email addresses. So let's see here. These are pending. So if your invite actually dies, which it will expire after a week, so they're still live today, right now?
No, it says it expired.
Oh, it did? So
I followed that account. I think that didn't work.
yeah, no, you have to actually accept the invite using the button. It should, where's my pending members? Let me see if I can find the ones that have not accepted yet. Yeah, eventually it will give me the ability to re-invite you. Go back over here and see if I can pick it up here. Let's see, pending invitations, failed invitations, pending invitations. There they are. And I don't want to cancel them. Failed invitations. I'm going to go ahead and re-invite all of these. So let's just retry. There we go. Hit that. And that should refresh all of those. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Got to go page by page. Lord have mercy. Go ahead and retry those. Those again. Try these. That'll freshen up the invites. Or have I got 2 more screens? Looks like it's only doing 30 per screen. Okay. Last 3. That should actually, and you were in that list. I saw it.
That was the last night.
I saw you, yeah. Okay, so that should do it. And then, you know, here's that exploring the Python code base and then creating a roadmap file. Now, creating a roadmap file, what's kind of cool about that, if I come back over here and I set up, let me come back to Python teaching code. Here's Python teaching code. And if I come in here, one of the things I want you to realize is that you can add files. So that's really what this is about. So the README, when you start a new repository, you can just hit a checkbox to create a README. But with the roadmap, I can come over here and I can hit add file, create new file. And then I can come over here and say project roadmap.md, and it will automatically make it into a project roadmap. I want to get that space out of there. I could leave the space, but I'm going to take it out. And then I would fill this in later, whatever it is. There are ways to make checkboxes and things. So if you look at some examples from other ones, notice I have to commit this thing to actually put it into my repository. I have to say what I'm doing. Creating project roadmap to coordinate the team or whatever. And then I would hit commit. But if you go into some of the existing repositories, let's say you don't know how to put the content in here, there are some good ones. So I don't know. Let's see. Let's pull up OCR receipt and see if that was a good one. No, that's not a good one. Let's pull up. You'll see what I'm talking about a good one.
Like
So,
checkboxes.
yeah, it'll be well. Here's a roadmap. That's a good one. This is a good one. Look at that formatting. Isn't that nice? Got little checkboxes and things. So if you want to know how that works, what can you do? Just hit edit. And then look, that's how you make checkboxes and then check them off. That's like a little shortcut key that'll make that format. Pretty straightforward. Kind of cool. That's basically just using Markdown language. That's the shortcut in Markdown language. And it'll work actually in the Jupyter notebook as well. The same Markdown is used there. So that kind of gets us through what's going on with Sprint 1. So if I have a technology team, I'm not expecting them to start making code in the first section of a project. I'm talking we're going to do due diligence. We're going to be looking for existing code that makes sense. We're going to be trying to then test it out, download it, run it, see if it does something, if it's working, or does it throw errors? Can I figure out how to run it? Is it well documented? What if I do figure out how to run it and it wasn't well explained? I could actually suggest those, I could write those instructions and I could suggest them to the project maintainer. And then I become a contributor to that project, a public project. That could be actually a really important project out on the GitHub that thousands of people use. And now that might even go on my resume. You know, I helped develop X, Y, or Z project. Have I had students in class do that in the past? Yep, actually. Documentation and explanation is valuable. Being able to say how to use something or what to do with it, valuable. So you might actually right now be able to contribute something to the world that's of great use. Other questions? Thoughts? Can you do it? Yes, yes you can. Definitely do it. Do you have to have working code at the end of this project? I see some yeses and nos. What do I most want you to learn from this project?
Process.
Definitely the process. Because I'm trying to train you to be a strategic computing technology innovation manager. So actually, there's nothing better than your code blowing up during this project. That's excellent. Nothing better, too, than you biting off more than you can chew. Also excellent. Because if you bite off more than you can chew, think about that analogy. What does it really mean? It means we needed to break it up into smaller bites. Wait a minute. That's the whole point of project sprints. Break it into smaller bites. That's a management issue. That's us. We can do that. We're learning how to do that. We can build anything. I don't know what you want to build, but we've just talked through some examples. We could build a tornado predictor. Actually, tornado predictor sounds like something we could just download and run. But there were several of them. So maybe there's some insights from several of them we could put together and make a better one. Maybe. Because people don't do that. Like computer scientists, they tend to like just do their thing. They're not looking across all the other options. You need someone who's kind of strategic to do that. Go back and review and go, you know, guys, we're writing something that we could just borrow. And that way, the stuff we're doing for the next 3 weeks would be done. And now we can get into deeper, more strategic stuff and save ourselves $100,000 or something like that. Yeah, a lot of possibilities. I'm really interested in you walking through the process and learning, personally executing it, but also learning how to do it so that you can be in control and in charge of technology innovation. Because you can. So your code, you could, some of you get real anxious about making something in your first programming class. Not all of you, it's not your first class in programming or coding, or for some of you, but for many of you it is. If you want to just limit it to something simple, that's fine. It's not going to kill me. I don't really mind what you want, but I'm happy for you to try something ambitious. I want you to care about what you're doing. That's the most important thing. So if you're working on something that matters to you, chances are you'll be more committed and interested in it. Because you're going to run into problems. Almost guaranteed. I hope you do. You should. Because companies do all the time. What do you think the project failure rate is?
Technology projects.
Chaos Group, which is a consulting group, Deloitte does this too. So Fiona asked, can we do our project code completely in Jupyter Notebooks? Yes, you can. Yep, absolutely. Anybody want to guess project failure rate for technology projects?
Over 85%.
Not complete failure, but partial failure, over 85%. Complete failure, between 30 to 50%. What size is that in the capital IT projects, capital technology innovation projects? How much money goes into that globally each year? The last time I saw this figure has been a couple years, so I'm out of date. And I'm probably way under at this point, because COVID drove a lot of capital spending on technology. Last I heard a formal figure, it was $7.2 trillion a year spent on this. Trillion. I'm gonna write that number. I just want us to appreciate the zeros for a second. Remember when we calculated out 80 gigabytes or something? We did 2 terabytes, I think we did, versus 80 bytes in the little card on your name tag, right? So 7.2, so 7, 2, and then let's get some zeros. I'm clearly not there yet. Not there yet. That's just millions. Am I there?
No.
Am I there? $7.2 trillion a year. It's just a ton of spending on technology projects, technology innovation projects.
It's true. It's true.
A lot of money. Even if just a third of that completely fails. What if you are able to go to a company and help improve it by 1%? What if we could improve it by 1%? Would you take 1% of $3 trillion? Yeah. I mean, I would. Per year. So the opportunity is enormous. That's why Accenture and all these companies exist, because there's so much loss, so much danger. Can you do it? So I did find the thing I was trying to find last class. So I'm going to go get it. We're going to do it next Monday, but I'll show it to you today. Tasks and time. Because ultimately motivation is going to matter here. So if I'm going to run a team, I got to get people motivated. I got to keep them doing it. I have to have them believe they can do it when they get overwhelmed. Remember I was telling you about this chart last class? Here it is. So we're at the start of the project now. Nobody's behind. You see what I got here, right? So this is, now, most of the time when you're doing project work for classes, you get asked or you have deliverables you turn in about your project. But your actual project work isn't visible. So here the project work is actually putting code up into a GitHub repository in our organization. Can I see your actual work? Well, yes, I can. Yes, every time you make a commit, I can go look at your repository and see exactly what you did and when and how long it took you. So if you're not working, if you're telling me you're working, but you're not really, as a manager, do I know? Yeah, I can know if I want to look. I'm not really a micromanager. I don't know if you've noticed that about me. I don't have time to micromanage all of you guys. But I want you to know this tool because you're going to end up paying guys who charge $300,000 a year for coding. You better bet you're going to care whether they're actually working or not. They're charging by the hour maybe or whatever. And this tool exists. So anyway, just for fun, as they say, shits and giggles, I went and I pulled the data down once upon a time. This is a couple semesters back. And I did analytics using pandas in a Jupyter notebook just to come up with a chart here to show how much progress people had made. We were starting I think we were starting the third sprint. We were done with the second sprint. We were starting the third sprint. So I had these time points. I could tell if people had made changes to their README, whether they had the project roadmap file, whether it had any updates to it, whether there were any code files. Did the code files have any updates to them? I put all that together and I measured it as progress, actual progress, not reported progress, actual progress, whether they had actually done the work up to that point and were on task and up to date. Because I could automate all that in analytics. And so I could see that out of, you notice the numbers here. So here we've got 25 people, here's another 25, and in the middle is about 25. So about 75 students, 3 sections of the class, similar to right now. We have 3 sections of the class. Got about 75 people left out of 100 who started. Not unusual. Not that I don't take pride in people dropping the class, but people get scared and they don't reach out and they psych themselves out and they give up. I don't want that to happen, but it does happen. I know it happens. In fact, to that degree, I want to point out that the guys down here in the lab, many of them, they've been through, or they're going through it. You can always stop right by and talk to them or share what you're working on or ask a question. If I'm not around, you got people in person right down the hall you can talk to. You can come hang out down there and work too. You're always welcome to come in and work down there. But anyway, I had the analytics, and what do you see here? Do you see what I saw? Do you see it? A third have not even started. We are 2/3 of the way through the project, and a third have not started. I showed this to my colleagues. I think I mentioned this last class. Remember? Showed it to my colleagues. They were like, wow, you're getting great work out of them. I'm like, oh shit, you kidding me? A third of them haven't even started, and we're almost done. They're like, it's like that all the time. People like wait till the last minute to even start. I'm like, no way. Well, I mean, I know that's true. I've been teaching I started teaching in 1993. It's not like I'm brand new to it, right? I've seen it. But I want you to be a technology innovation manager, right? I want you to reflect on this number and think about it, because this happens in industry. Now, if you're in charge of the P&L, you know what I'm talking about with P&L? Profit and loss. If you're the manager, I'm training you to be the manager. And I don't want you to be the minor manager. I want you to be the boss. I want you to be the CIO or the CEO. You will be in charge of profit and loss. Does this bother you?
A lot of loss.
Why? Is it a loss? We're not done with the project, so it's not a loss yet, is it?
Gotta be.
Bound to be, inefficient. What's wrong? Tell me more. What's really wrong here? Well, but they have a week left, 2 weeks. Do all the work in the last third.
They're getting paid for 4 weeks though.
What if they work extra hard the last week?
It's inefficient.
All-nighters. Got all-nighters. Huh? Got the work done.
It's not the same quality because it's rushed.
It might not be the same quality because it's rushed. Is that true? Do you really believe that?
Personally.
Personally. Some people really believe they can pull the all-nighter. They really do.
It's gonna, if anybody's in that global, you also spend the what culture into
A little bit.
culture, because like different flexible time or the zone time, whatever it is.
I've seen people working like the last minute all-nighter and they do nearly perfect job. I mean, it happens, but personally, it's not very efficient. And you know,
Risky too. How much error checker error checking can you do on that all-nighter? Okay, now let's imagine the business scenario. We're doing a major upgrade to the, I'll use Home Depot again. We're doing a major upgrade to the Home Depot website, adding in analytics, customer account, discount, automations, things like that. Do new product categories. We're messing with the store and the taxation engine. Like we're doing a big old project with the fundamental revenue engine for the company. How much risk? How much no testing do we want? How much last minute completion do we want?
Zero. A lot of money.
There's a lot of, yeah, it's our fundamental revenue. But it happens in industry. This stuff happens in industry too. But if you're the manager, you better want a dashboard like this. You want to pay attention. You better know. Actually, I definitely want to know who's in this category, honestly. I'm going to give them a bonus. This is where the bonus is. These guys, I might keep these guys. Uh-oh. What's the implication? All right. Now I know who to get rid of, and I know how many people I need to hire in the coming quarter. Cool. 30% turnover. Not unusual. Oh, but no. Wait a minute. Is it possible some of those projects have other reasons that are legitimate that they have no progress? Not in our class, but say in industry. In our class, there's no reason not to have started. There might be someone with a medical emergency. We have those from time. Really not 33%. But it could be that maybe the person got pulled into other projects. This happens in industry all the time. The human capital management. People are rarely on only one project. Maybe some other manager took my people. And this happens to you guys. You're taking a bunch of classes, right? And so all of a sudden, you got no bandwidth left. Somebody soaked up all your bandwidth into other emergency projects or what have you. And so you just aren't putting any effort on this one. It's less important to you. Well, I kind of want to know that because it could be a structural issue. It could be that students are taking too many classes or who knows. Remember how I said I added quizzes to this class that are on a timer that you can't get them back once they're gone? For this reason, to try to get people to move a little faster and keep up with the timeline a little bit. This project does a little bit of that, but maybe I need more. But that's then the micromanaging kind of thing. And we're trying to do creative work. And those things usually conflict with each other. Micromanagement and creative work don't go together very well. It gets tricky. And we're going to do an activity. This PowerPoint deck actually leads into an activity we'll do on Monday to explore that more. We're going to explore the human component of managing a technology project and how to get people moving. An activity. Anybody else? Questions, thoughts? Ideas? Isn't that exciting? Look at that graph.
Is that really surprising to the other professors you said?
Yeah, honestly. I talked to most of the other tenured IS faculty. I showed them this graph. And 2 or 3 of them were like, wow, that's great. You really got them moving early. I'm like, wow, really? Phew.
I think you need to keep with what you have. I like your structure of your class, how you can go back and do things. Or like if you are stuck on one project, you can say, oh, I'll do this one tomorrow, and I don't have to like stress. Or I feel like you don't have. There's no like exact deadline.
Yeah, you can turn this in late too. Actually,
I think that's perfect. I feel like it's less stressful, and it kind of gives you more of like a time range of doing things. Because I feel like if you do it wrong, you tell us. Then we go back and redo it. So I have a teacher now that you just been wrong, just do 0, and then you can't fix it.
So
it's tricky. It's a tricky balance. I appreciate your comment. And notice I mentioned the mental health stuff earlier. We're definitely at a place in the world, in society, at this moment where people are thinking they can't do it. They're ready to give up. They're feeling disconnected. We've got to be connecting to each other. We've got to be trying and giving some leeway. Like, we've created in some way a society that's just brutal. We need more peace and friendship and connection. I should put some flowers in my hair once. So. And at the same time, we need people to do the hard stuff. Like, I don't want everyone to just be an English major. I want you to come in here and learn to code. I want you to create a better future. You're not going to do that just by writing an essay. You're going to have to create new technologies and solutions. Got to do both.
Not having that deadline. Well, we have a deadline.
You got deadlines.
But having that peace of mind that I don't have to rush it and make something that's not right. You know, like, for example, those module assignments, like what we do, like we code it and then we put it in IDE to check if it is running before we submit it, because you always ask us to do that.
Yeah. Not everybody does that, by the way.
And it's fun, like, even if I'm like a few minutes late or a couple days late, I know that I have the peace of mind that I have time to perfect it.
All right.
Helps.
You can also turn it in and then fix it later.
Really. Yeah. I thought once you submit it, that's okay. Nope.
Some of you have done that, right? Something's wrong, you can fix it later.
You can turn it
And there's no limit to the number of times.
in.
So I've had people turn it in like in the wrong format or something. I'm like, well, get a 0. But you can fix it and turn it back in, and then I'll regrade it. We've done it. All right, well, do something fun, you know. Find a topic you want to do. And if someone else is doing something like what you're doing and you want to, and they're working single, you want to work with them, they don't have to be in this section. They could be in any section. Be online, evening, whatever. You know, if you want to work with somebody, you can. You can be 2, just 2. Trying to avoid what we call social loafing. You know what that is? That's when you get a team of a sufficient size that members think they don't have to work because the others will do it. So 2 is about at the, 2 is possible. You get up to like 5, you need more intentional management structure. You get over 5, you really need intentional structure to make sure everybody contributes. I don't want those team dynamics in the way of this project, so I encourage you to work on your own, or you can work with a partner. Partner programming is a real thing. Partner programming is very real. Google uses it. They'll hire 2 programmers to work on one set of tasks. And they'll have them sit together and program all the time together. One person typing, only one. The other one's just thinking and talking and doing, trying to make sure it's as high as quality as possible as they go. It's a thing.